Academy. We aren't here for a top 5 clickbait, we're here for the mechanical truth. Most players pick up the Kuva Nukor and treat it like a single, simple beam weapon, a fire and forget static. But today we are deconstructing why that is the foundational error. This isn't just a guide. It is an audit of the undisputed sovereign of the secondary slot. We are going to deconstruct 5 distinct engineering configurations that pushes this weapon into the only territory that matters, the absolute ceiling of endgame. And then, if you don't understand on how your progenitor element dictates the entire mathematical ceiling of the system, pause the video, and I would highly suggest you head to the adversary matrix masterclass link below, and then come back to the video because we're gonna move into the lab right now. So we're in the arsenal and the orbiter. You're looking at my Rhino there, looks very fabulous, but Rhino is not today's main buffet. We're gonna have a look at the Kuva Nukor. So I'm gonna glaze this weapon so much to the extent that you can understand why I love it and why it's just so underrated and why it's one of the best weapons. So as you can see on screen, I have 56.4% electricity. Now I know it's not 60% because 60% is technically the max amount of status that you can go with Kuva Nukor. However, a 4% difference is not all that much, so you will still get a good idea of how much damage this weapon can dish out. So you're probably wondering, why electricity? Well, I'll tell you why. It is the most flexible anchor in the Warframe engine. Electricity doesn't lock you into a binary damage type. By selecting electricity, you enable a modular modding environment where you can pivot into either corrosive for armor shredding, or radiation for boss killing, or just a pure status spreading, all without destroying your status priority weighting. You're choosing versatility over raw one-dimensional damage. That is the Swifty Academy standard. So this is where I explain the builds. We are in the simulacrum, we have no pets, and we're using Loki with a very bad passive. We have no mods on him whatsoever. So I don't want people to think that I'm cheating in any way whenever I show this build in action. I would have loved to show it in an actual level cap situation or scenario, but I'm still a little bit under the weather, but that's completely fine. So instead I will showcase how each and every single build will perform against a simulated level cap enemy called the Glock officers. They will be level 230. Steel path modifiers enabled, so they will have a bunch of armor, a bunch of health, everything. And without further ado, let's look at the first build. So the first build for today is what I call a level cap build. Essentially how this works is we use secondary innovate to help us increase our critical chance, and it resets at after 6 big critical hits. And since we are not modding for crit chance at all on the build, it will ramp up quite fast. All that I can say. And then secondly, on the build, you'll also notice that we're running 2 primary elements, which is corrosive and magnetic. Magnetic is there so that we can do more damage against enemies with shield to overguard. And if we do a lot of level cap cascades, this is one of the best elements to use. I know my veterans that do level cap cascades every single day, they know that magnetic is mandatory, so that's why that's there. And then corrosive is just pure damage. It helps you armor strip enemies 80% of the armor, and yeah, it's just nutty. And then of course in the extra slot we have Ruinous Extension for that 8 meter beam range. And if you're curious to what I have on my Riven, it's critical damage and toxin. If you don't have a Riven, that's completely fine. Instead of the Riven, use toxin. Okay, and we have Merciless Gunfight for extra critical damage, but more importantly, that extra punch through. Sorry, I cannot speak. It's gonna help us hit more than one enemy at a time, basically. So without further ado, let's go and summon these dudes. The Coxet officers, as I said, they have a bunch of health, and you can get them from scanning them on crew memberships. Okay, here they are. No buffs, no nothing whatsoever. How is it? This is how it's performing. And they simulate essentially how level cap enemies will be. And this is without buffs. This is me just stacking up my damage. As you can see, very, very strong. Let's look at the second build for today. It is going to be a corrosive and heat setup. We run Cascadia Flare for that extra heat damage because heat stacks infinitely. If you didn't know, Runes Extension, obvious choice. As you can see, we have no crit mods except for the Riven, but the Riven is not actually needed. You can just use a normal toxin mod and you will be completely fine. So, if you want to know how this works, is the following. If we look at the status weighting here, you'll notice that corrosive is more than heat, but that's fine. Why? Because of Pistol Elementalist. Pistol Elementalist will allow us to do more damage with the following status effects: slash, heat, electricity, toxin, blast, and gas. That's extra status, and it's kind of like raw, where you would essentially double dip with heat. So if we were to calculate using calculators, and I don't really do this, but for the sake of the video, you are gonna take 173.4 times 2 equals to 346.8 heat. So it'll be significantly more than the corrosive, and also because we have prime immediate charge, but that's besides the point. So with that, I have no buffs whatsoever, and let's start firing and you guys can see how it performs. Now if I had something like viral applied, it would basically do way more damage. But what I want you guys to realize is the amount of hit procs it stacks. It gets insane. Very, very insane. Setup, I'm gonna show you guys a build that I do like. It is not meant for level cap. I think it can go to level cap. While I use this setup for level cap, no. What is this build for? Well, for the memes. It's made to do funny stuff, okay? This build is essentially electricity and blast. Okay, so before I go into the build itself, I'm going to explain something in theory, and then I want you guys to just visualize and think for yourselves how this will handle. Okay, so we have electricity and blast. That is the main point. Radiation is built in. It is not something that's part of the weapon. I cannot change it. I wish I could, but I can't. So what does electricity do? Electricity changes between nearby enemies, temporarily applying a stun effect and dealing damage over time. DOT, okay? That's besides the point. What I want to make a point out of is the following. Blast deals 30% of base damage after 1.5 seconds as an explosion. At 10 stacks or on death, stacks deal their damage simultaneously to enemies within a 5-meter radius while staggering them. Okay, if you put 2 and 2 together, how does this work? Electricity and blast is like a synergy. Electricity chains nearby enemies, but blast also chains nearby enemies, it staggers them, and kaboom, kabloomies. It's a fun synergy. It's not meant to do other stuff other than that. And then if you look at the main build, we have prime fulmination because we want to increase the blast radius of the blast. So it's 5 meters plus 44, around 50 blast radius. It's massive. It's absolutely massive. Then of course we have face damage. And then if you look at pistol elementalist again, as I've said earlier, the status weighting doesn't matter all that much. But if you really want to go and do the math, you take the element times it by 2 because it's like a faction damage multiplier, but it's for status damage. And because we've electricity and blast, it'll basically double these two, so it will outweigh radiation, because radiation is good but has niche cases. And then conjunction voltage, why? Because more multi-shot, more chaining reactions. Without further ado, let's go and have a look at how this performs. So instead of using Goxhead officers, we're gonna use corrupted heavy gunners. They're also very tanky, and they're level 230 something, 235. Okay, that's even higher. Okay, so this is how it works. So yeah, admittedly, it'll be bad. It'll be very, very bad. But this is where the Swifty Academy doesn't just stop there. So this build alone doesn't work all that well. So here's what I will do. First, we swap Loki for Lavos. We bring Lavos out, and I'll show you a build that I have for him called Zara Rara, where we use Zara's Whisper to help us essentially double dip our Kuva Nukor. And since we already have blast built on the Kuva Nukor, I will use Viral as the base foundation of basically debuffing enemies. So let's do that real quick. So you can see we have Viral there. You do this, okay, then watch the magic. Now admittedly, if you pair certain setups and builds up with other Warframes, it will of course do different stuff, perform in other ways. And then if we go and spawn the Corkstats, just as a showcase, again, will I use this setup? No. And level cap, no. But that's not the point. Let me show you how it performs regardless. As you can see, the ticks are popping off, and yeah, when the galvanized shot and everything just really pops in and whatever, you can see it can do damage. That is not an issue at all. Not an issue at all. But again, if you wanna rate this build on a merit on its own, it's probably meh. It's like C or B tier. But again, it's just a funny build. It's not meant to go level cap. But again, as I said, if you use specific Warframes and setups, it can go to level cap. So on to our fourth build. This is where things gets funny. Okay. So let me show you the build and then explain why and whatever. So this is not built for status in terms of, using something like Pistol Elementalist at all. This is meant for spreading status and clearing out enemies with just pure status. Okay? So again, I'm using a Riven. Again, you don't have to use the Riven, just imagine the Riven as just Toxin. Okay? So if we look at the secondary arcane, it says on hitting enemies afflicted by 10 stacks of radiation, deals 180% of the damage to enemies within 7 meters. Again, since this is the Kuva Nukor and it likes to spread his beam and stuff, things get crazy. And as you can see on screen, this is a very nasty build. We have magnetic, radiation, and corrosive. Radiation is to proc the secondary erudite element, that's why having radiation is not too bad. And then magnetic, obvious for overshields and shields in general. Corrosive is just a pure damage thingy. And without further ado, let's showcase how this performs. And I'm using the Loki again because I don't want people to think that you have to use specific Warframes to make it do a lot of damage or whatever the case might be. So these are Echo Coxhead officers. Again, very tanky. They are basically the same as a level cap enemy. And here's me using the weapon. As you can see, it spreads to a lot of enemies. I'm not going to show this weapon to deal damage. I'm going to show you how it spreads. So I'm going to shoot this one enemy, and then it spreads till these enemies over here. So in theory, it is good on its own, not as much. So keep in mind that with all of these builds, that it will perform better depending on the Warframe that you use. But on its own, it's mediocre. Fifth and final build. This is a setup build, but I'm gonna show how it performs regardless. Okay, how does this work? You might be wondering. This is a Profit Taker build, so it will look weird. Like, why don't I have galvanized shot diffusion? What is wrong with Swifty? This build is trash. No. Here's why. Because in Profit Taker, you have to kill enemies around him and then it will trigger an extra boost of damage. So it's a waste. What you should rather do is invest into 60/60 mods, where you basically boost your status things. And then as you can see, we don't have crit chance at all on this build. Why? Because of secondary innovate. And then that's the build. Like, it's not meant for killing level cap enemies at all. That is not the point. It will of course perform very poorly. Like as you guys can see, I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. It is not. This build is not meant for level cap enemies. So don't think you can trash on this build because it cannot kill level cap enemies. It is not meant for level cap. That's why. So without further ado, I think I'm going to show a showcase of me using Kuva Nukor instead. Because I don't want to just show stuff in the simulacrum, that it gets boring. So without further ado, here is some gameplay of me against the Profit Taker solo. So let me okay, I'm a bit rusty. Don't judge me, I'm a bit rusty, okay? Okay, here we go. So we're gonna go and find the Profit Taker. And this is me live talking as I fight the Profit Taker, and I'm going to show you how this works. So we have a bunch of elements, a bunch of weapons, and if you're curious or want to know how I do Profit Taker, let me know in the comments. I will definitely make a video on how I do the Profit Taker solo. Without further ado, let's knock down these elements on it. We have puncture, we had puncture, now we can throw our Kuva Nukor and it took out the element, and then we throw out our arcing weapon, and then we take out the legs, and then we take out the main body. And of course, you can throw at your crew member if you're being irritated by PXK enemies, because they're not the main point. The main point is the Profit Taker. And then I go into my operator and I shoot myself towards them, I launch myself towards them, teleport towards them a little bit, then I shoot them. Admittedly, you can use the optical vandal or the zenith or zenith, whatever it's called. I don't care. I have my upgrade. I'm gonna use it regardless. It doesn't really all it's not that serious. That's all what I'm saying. And then I take out the legs, take out the main body. Okay, now you switch back to your weapons, and I'll showcase how my Kuva Nukor performs. Ta-da! And then you just do this a little bit. Then you just throw out your thingy, and then again, like it's easy. Like the Kuva Nukor helps with a bunch of elements: magnetic, electricity, gas, puncture, slash, you name it. I think it does puncture and slash. I can't remember, but point is, it does its job. Okay, it does its job. Okay, and then you go back into your operator. And you shoot these pylons with your operator. Again, you can use whatever, but I am feeling lazy to aim with my optical vandal, so I am using my operator. Alright, so I don't know what's the element, so let me just get closer because I just want to shoot blindly. Okay, so it's gas, so good idea, good timing. Here is the, you see, like it went through so much elements simultaneously, like I couldn't see what was the element because of the Kuva Nukor. The Kuva Nukor does so much things simultaneously, it's not even funny. Okay, let me just finish off the Prophet Taker. Shoot the legs. And then you shoot the body one more time and you're done. Easy. Okay, I say easy, but for other people it might not be as easy, but it's really not that bad. And they just throw down your Spectre, your dragon cloak thing, I don't know what's the name, but you just throw down his fourth, you get a bunch of credits, extra good stuff, and that is a Prophet Taker build for my Kuva Nukor. And if you want me to showcase every single build that I have for this specific layout, for the chroma, everything, let me know in the comments. I'm curious to see if people are curious to know what I used specifically. I can tell you what I used though. I used Optica Vandal, Kuva Nukor obviously, and then Azul. Sovereign, you have the builds, you have the logic, and now you have the tool to carry you through any content this game throws at you. If you got the Kuva Nukor, now you need a Kuva weapon catalog. Link to the farming guide is in the description, and if you want to argue about these builds, or if you want to have a 6 configuration I haven't audited or mentioned, jump into the Discord. The 400 plus legends are waiting to hear your take. Keep the build clean, keep the math honest, and stop sitting for slop. I'll see you in the next lesson, legends. A peace.